Welcome to the Parent Advocate Podcast, a show where we celebrate, defend, support, and uplift the voices of the LGBTQIA community. I'm your host, Stephen Chikumba. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm joined once again by my amazing co-host, Lisette Trujillo.
Hi everyone, Lisette here, she, her, Aya. The mission of the Parent Advocate podcast is to elevate conversations and reframe narratives around trans and non-binary youth to help change hearts and minds. Each week we bring you our take on all things happening from the perspective of two parents of BIPOC transgender kids.
Lisette, the holidays are always a trying time for families of gender expansive people. So I wanted us to take a moment to check in with our listeners and get a pulse check for how people have been doing.
I feel you, Stephen. I know that I've been in the fields a lot, so I think it's a good idea for us to talk about what families are going through right now.
Agreed. So, welcome everyone once again to the Parent Advocate Podcast. Let's get started. All right, Lisette, it was the National Day of Mourning, also Thanksgiving for those who celebrate, also Friendsgiving for people who don't really want to F with family but still want to get together. And I know it was like Christmas in Spain. So, talk to me about what's been going on for you.
Stephen, I just saw the most lovely film called I Wish You All the Best. It was produced by Tommy Dorfman and it's got like a queer cast. It's like a non-binary coming of age, and Daniel loves coming of age films. And when I tell you that we screamed when Brian Michael came on screen, he was like the rigid camp counselor. It's like, get your shit together. It was really sweet and tender and lovely. And so that's the thing that I was like, oh, like this is really like, it was a really good movie. And I think it was like hit all the marks. So I highly recommend people watch that on their holiday breaks when they want to like get away from family or not have political conversations. They can be like, I'm going to go sit in the living room and watch a film. And then they can put this lovely queer coming of age and make it awkward in the best way while they get to enjoy this really great film. What else has been going on our end? Oh, so much, Stephen. People have no idea. Like moving and disrupting your life financially is terrifying. And it's also terrifying to think like, but we can't go back home because it doesn't feel safe to go back home. And so it's like there's been a lot of false starts out here. And so it's just stressful. And I miss my family. I wish that I could have awkward sibling time. Although I love my siblings, but that's where I'm at. How about you?
Child, it's so funny you should talk about awkward sibling time. As you know, I don't fuck with one of my brothers. He's
Yeah.
just persona non grata. Every year, we do now what is called the Chukumba dinner on the Friday after Thanksgiving. Like, I am not going to allow the colonizers' day to be my day and how we define how we get together. But
That's right.
we're going to get together and we're going to break bread and we're going to share each other's company. And because persona non grata isn't even around, we don't have to fuck with him. However, his birthday technically falls like a few days after Thanksgiving. And so in the past, we'd have Thanksgiving dinner and then we would also celebrate his birthday. And so it wasn't nobody thinking about this fool's birthday this year. And my mom told me at dinner that he sent a text to the family telling us all not to wish him happy birthday on his birthday.
You're like, don't
Who
worry,
does
I
that?
won't.
Who does that? And so, in terms of like awkward sibling moments, like I try my best to avoid having to have them by keeping the ones that are not down with us further than arm's length. Like, you got to cross multiple state lines to fuck with me. And so, it was just so funny. And she just shared it in passing. Like, wasn't nobody thinking about that fool, but I don't understand how we're living rent free in this fool's brain. And I don't know why.
It's so interesting that you say that because I think what happens is that they can't believe that you won't change or shift because they've rejected you. And so,
Yeah.
like, for them, it's like reverse rejection and they don't know what to do with it.
Clearly, I started there just because it was just like a little funny thing that happened. But this past week, it's literally been like a blur. I cannot believe we're at the end of yet another week and I don't even know where the time went. Honestly,
Yeah.
I spent all of yesterday cooking. I got up at like 8, dinner was at 5. I cooked through, and child, when I tell you oh my goodness, I threw down. I threw down. I made curry goat. I made collard greens. I made collard greens slow. Started with browning the turkey, then creating the broth, chopping up and cleaning the collard greens. I cooked that bitch down. I
That
made
sounds lovely.
my famous macaroni and cheese. cheese, my macaroni and cheese is to die for. It's to die for. Nicole made her cornbread stuffing. If you have never had Nicole's cornbread stuffing, you have not lived. This girl's
Clearly, I
cornbread
need some of
stuffing,
this.
child, it's like literally another thing to die for. We were just eating my candied yams. So my candied yams aren't just
You
regular
made
candied yams.
candied yams?
Candied yams, got the potatoes, skinned them, sliced them, baked them with the brown sugar, then mashed them. Woo!
Did you take pictures?
Oh, yeah, I got pictures. I forgot to take them at the start, but I did do my reveal. So I will share with you the video of the grand reveal because you can't just eat. You got to do a reveal of all the food that was made and then you eat. So
Jose's laughing over here. We
yeah, 'cause you
actually
got to.
we took a trip. We went and visited Debbie. She has shared that she's in Spain. And so we took a trip to go visit her for her Friendsgiving. And it was lovely. And she made so much good food. And so it felt like home away from home. And I didn't take pictures because like, I don't know, I don't want to like invade her privacy. So I was like, I really wish I would have taken a photo of our plate, but I didn't. But it was everything that we needed.
Yes.
And then, no, Steven. Okay, so I have to share this with you. So sometimes I'm like, we live in like real Disneyland. I know how you feel about it, but let me just set the mood. Daniel was at jazz practice. Jose was away painting. I see all these people wandering and I'm like, where are they going? And so I like followed them to the center of town. Steven, they played like Frozen. They played Beauty and the Beast. They played Sleeping Beauty.
Who
and then
are
all of
they?
a sudden they had like, no, it was nighttime. It was like 7:30 at night. They're like lighting up the town hall with like spotlights of color. And then all of a sudden the lights go out and Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You comes on. All the Christmas lights came on and then fireworks everywhere. I was like, how did this happen? How did I end up in a parade?
Lisette.
and a music festival show with fireworks.
Absolutely not. I mean, while it was a happy ending, what you just described is like anti-black and brown people. We do not follow random white people to the town center.
I was like, where are they going?
Shit.
I want to see what this is.
Absolutely not. There is no curiosity. We are going in the opposite direction. Like, hell no.
Steven, it was Christmas joy. Like when Mariah Carey came on.
I hear you. I
was like, what is this madness?
I appreciate the ending, but I'm telling you right now, I'd have been like, no, Lisette, we're going in this direction. We are not following those people. Hell to the gnaw. But let us stop talking about Christmas in Spain and Mariah Carey and fireworks, and let's talk about today's topics.
All right, let's do it.
Can we talk about the 100 congressional Democrats who wrote Pam Bondi urging the U.S. Department of Justice to reinstate investigation of hate crimes, especially those based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender? Like, I don't understand how, because we have this present administration, the DOJ is no longer doing their jobs in enforcing the law, especially as it relates to hate crimes. You are the highest law enforcement official in this country, and you are failing to enforce the law uniformly, especially as it relates to crimes that are taking place against specific members of our community. You are derelict in your duties and you should be held to account. And I'm really happy that once again, the congressional Democrats are stepping up and asking our appointed officials to do their fucking jobs.
Yeah, Pam Bondi's wild. And honestly, I'm not surprised. I'm still shook at the photos of young Pam Bondi with Trump. And so you can infer what you want there, but she's clearly doing this administration's bidding and is not going to do her job effectively at all, because doing her job is following the lead of what this administration wants, regardless of if it infringes on the civil rights of other people.
What's really disturbing beyond what you've said, because apparently a lot of the young women that he has appointed to positions of power in his administration have a history that goes back to them as young girls. Mm-hmm. Do with that information as you will, but it's disturbing to see the sheer number of them that have a connection to them when they were small girls. So we'll leave that right there. But today, she's a grown woman. Today, she has a job to do. Today, she's responsible for ensuring the uniform enforcement of law and the prosecution of people that break the law. And so if you break the law, if you break federal law, if you break the law and the Department of Justice has the authority and the responsibility to investigate investigate and to bring charges against people, especially when we're talking about those elevated to hate crimes. It's just unconscionable that this administration, Pam Bondi, any of them in the administration are neglecting to do that which is their sworn duty. It's just too disturbing.
It's upsetting. We were at dinner today and Daniel was like, they want us to believe that civil rights was so long ago, or that like we are distant from these movements. And we barely gained a few rights only to see it all slide away under this administration. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's one word for it.
All right, Stephen, I want to talk about the federal courts rejecting yet another attempt by the DOJ, because we know that they're not going to protect people, to access the private medical records from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia regarding children receiving gender-affirming care. The federal court in Philadelphia told the DOJ flat out, nope, you cannot do this.
I have to tell you that I was very concerned when I saw that the DOJ was going after CHOP, because that's where Hobbs gets his care. That's where so many people that I know in this area get their care. It's one of the few places that have not given in to the administration. It's one of the few places that are still actively taking patients, actively issuing prescriptions, actively going through with surgeries. And so I was like, oh no, are they gonna fold like so many of these institutions have? And again, I have to be more compassionate than I've been with many of these institutions. And I don't think many people realize this, how much care these providers offer to non-gender expansive patients because of federal funding. And if they do not acquiesce to the administration's wishes on terminating care for trans and non-binary people, they will lose all of their funding, which means they will not be able to serve anyone. And as much as it just angers me that folks have to make that decision, I can't hold any hospital. I can't be mad when they say, hey, we have to stop care, because if we don't, everyone loses care. And again, we're talking about institutions that may serve rural communities where that's the only hospital for hundreds of miles. And so what do you do when they say we can't take you anymore? Like, obviously, as a parent of a trans kid, I'm like, fuck you. But I'm also like, I have to understand. I have to be empathetic, because other people's children are going to be harmed by this. And unlike other people who don't care about what happens to our children, I do care what happens to other people's children, especially when I know that the greater good is served when we take the L.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. When the clinic in our area in Arizona dropped care, people were angry at the doctors. And I'm like, this is administrative. We have to be able to see our doctors and honor like what they've done. Like our providers in Arizona would show up to legislative sessions. They would show up at different hearings. They would speak out at school boards. Like they were actively advocating. And now their jobs and their well-being is on the line. I mean, before they criminalize parents, they will criminalize doctors. And so we have to be in alignment with supporting them even when their institutions turn their backs on our families, right? Because it's not the doctors, it's the insurance companies, it's like all of these other inner workings of being a funded institution that are making these decisions. And so, and they're lawyers who are like far removed from our families. And so I think it's layered and it's hard. These are not easy decisions, and families are being left behind, and it's just scary. I think it's scary for everyone. And I know it's not the first thing that doctors want to do. Doctors want to provide care because they've sworn an oath to do no harm, and they believe in that. And that's why they were already providing care for our kids. So I completely agree with you.
But I am glad that the federal courts decided this is too far. What you're doing does not have a basis in law. You do not have the power to simply demand records because the Trump administration has made trans people their target. The fact of the matter is, if you want the records, you've got to do it the right way. And just demanding them because you want them isn't the right way. And if there's no basis for you to get them, you're not going to get them, and you shouldn't get them, and you shouldn't be asking for them. So I was really happy to see the federal courts once again tell this clown car DOJ, no, your shit is whack and you're stupid and you're not going to get these records. And I wish more people would pay attention to the number of losses that this administration has had in the federal courts across the United States, regardless of who appointed these justices. They're saying that your shit is whack and you should stop being so whack.
Yeah. 1,000%.
All right, this next topic really is along the same lines of what we've been talking about, which is the ongoing effort to erase trans people from public life. This time, the Trump administration has removed transgender caregivers and caregivers of color from the list of underserved or hard to reach populations. Dozens of changes were recently made this year to the national strategy to support family caregivers, whose objective is to prioritize efforts to advance equity for underserved and unserved caregivers. And so, in simple terms, a few years ago, they commissioned a study to determine which parts of our population were underserved for healthcare for caregivers and come up with strategies to address that. Out of that study, they determined that caregivers of LGBTQ plus people, LGBTQ plus caregivers, caregivers of color, or caregivers that serve people of color were the ones that were underserved, and those were the ones that needed to be assisted with resources, with access to resources. What the Trump administration has done is remove that information from that report. Instead of serving those people, going out of their way to serve those people because those are the ones that need the help, they're just like, we don't need to worry ourselves about that anymore. And once again, we find that LGBTQ plus people and caregivers that serve those communities and caregivers that serve communities of color are being left behind intentionally.
I know that this is a podcast and I should have something eloquent to say, but I really hate this administration with all my soul. I was on a Zoom for Transgender Day of Mourning, and Miss Janetta was on talking about how like being an elderly trans person often means like not having people to care for you, and how that care is like really necessary, especially as we see like how Miss Major was able to be cared for and grow old with dignity, right? That should be all of our rights, right? Like we want to be able to grow old and to do so with dignity and to be cared for once we are unable to care for ourselves. And so it just makes me hate these people even more because they're just evil people who want to do harm. Like they actively don't care about people, and it's gross.
It really is. You make a really good point when you bring up Miss Major, because I don't think people recognize the difficulty that attends to gender expansive people as they age. The care that trans people need is different from the care that cis people need. They still need care. It's just different. And so as you age, you are going to need people who understand the ways in which the elderly need to be provided for and cared for, the unique health issues that they have, and how to attend to them with compassion. And so in the absence of caregivers who are specifically trained to assist aging LGBTQ plus people, you find them left in the margins. You find them having just not positive health outcomes that could be addressed if people were attuned to their needs and there were specific efforts made to attend to their needs. But instead of this administration moving forward with the whole point and purpose of the study they commissioned, which is to ensure that people in marginalized communities and vulnerable communities aren't left behind, they're doing exactly that. They're ensuring that those communities of people suffer and don't have the care they need because cruelty is the point.
It's so interesting that you bring up this report. And I don't know if they were part of the same report, but I remember reading a study about a growing number of LGBTQIA people who were needing to go into assisted living and having to go back into the closet because these assisted living places were not going to be safe places for them to exist openly. And I can't imagine the pain that they must feel having fought so hard to live authentically, only to age and know that you need care, that you can't care for yourself, and feel vulnerable, so much so that you have to go into the closet again. It's heartbreaking and it's upsetting. And it's why policy is so personal, right? Like when you have people or parents or allies not understanding like the totality of our loved ones' stories, then we like fail to support and fill the gaps. And so I'm so glad that you brought this up for discussion because I think we don't talk about it enough.
You've caused me to have another thought of something else that I read recently that has nothing to do with this specific topic, but is in many ways very related, because several months ago, the state of Texas passed the Don't Say Gay law, essentially. And in Texas now, students are finding that their teachers are intentionally dead naming them. A child that may have transitioned in the 7th grade and is now a high school senior, so who for the past 5 years has been known by their chosen name, is now being referred to by their teachers intentionally by their dead name. Their report card has their dead name. Their progress report has their dead name. The teachers refer to them in class by their dead name. Now, everybody in the class, everybody in the school, everybody that interacts with that child now knows that that child is trans, whether that child share that information with them or not. And imagine you've been able to, for the past 5 years, live as your authentic self, live as your full self, present your full self to the world and be accepted as you are, to now have to contend with that person that you left behind and didn't think you were going to have to deal with, where you may have had your birth certificate changed. You may have had, now that you're a senior in high school, you have a driver's license that represents who you are. You may have the proper gender marker on your identity documents. And because Texas has decided to be some ass backward fucking hick town of a state, these children are now suffering the consequences. And I was just thinking about that, as you said, these people now have to go into assisted living and go back into the closet because otherwise they're not going to be able to access care, or they're not going to get the care that they need. That's tragic. I just can't.
I was at a different dinner recently, and one of the people, we were talking about, like, the importance of human rights. And I mentioned something like, I think people confuse fighting for human dignity and fighting for human rights as being something only policy driven. And they were like, no, because if we did that, we'd have anarchy. And I was like, no. And these are people who don't know. They know what they know of American politics, but they don't understand that we're a democratic republic. We're not a democracy in the ways that they lived through, like that they have a democracy and have access to things. And so I didn't push it too much. I was just like, But I really wish people understood that, like, treating somebody with care and seeing them fully as a human being and giving them their rights and dignity it's not going to do anything to you. It's not going to take anything from you.
Right.
And if we want a freer, more true democracy, then that's the direction that we need to go in. And so I think people get confused when you talk about that, when you talk about policy with them, because they don't understand. They've never had to see themselves impacted through policy directly. They've been able to sort of wander the world and not really feel like, maybe they get pissed about gas prices and then they'll be like, oh, gas. Like, I remember Daniel told me his favorite hate comment he ever got was like, first gas prices and now the transgenders, and Daniel was like, wait, how did I go from gas prices to me? Like, but I think most people move through the world without ever having to question or think or worry that somebody's going to treat them badly just because of who they are. It's those of us that experience those spaces that are sensitive to it,
Yes.
And so, and that's why these conversations are really important. Like, we should probably talk more about, like, LGBTQ elderly care and the ways that we can make that a more equitable space, because our kids are going to be elderly people one day.
You talking about elderly care, like, I'm just talking about care. Like, like, they got to get to elders. They have to become elderly before we can even talk about elderly care. Can we talk about the care they need today? Like, I was all happy that the DOJ couldn't access records from CHOP because that's where my kid goes. But how many places have been literally forced to close, literally forced to turn away patients, literally forced to cancel surgery or puberty blockers or hormone therapy because of the ways this administration has been conducting itself, the ways certain states have been conducting themselves, such that care is not accessible to many transgender people who still live in those communities.
Yeah.
Like, getting to elder care is like a dream. And I think, to your point, how do we get people to recognize that human dignity and human rights do not involve you losing anything?
Yeah.
Allowing gender expansive people to have rights does not take anything away from you. Allowing my child to go to the doctor does not take anything away from your child. And in fact,
it makes it easier, it makes it better. It expands it for yourself.
Again, for people who have this concept that gender affirming care for trans youth is somehow experimental and untested and novel and new, motherfuckers, we've been giving cisgender children the same exact therapies and treatments for decades. Stop with the fucking disinformation. If you don't know what you're talking about, shut the fuck up, for the love of God.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Like, we're not talking about something that is going to harm anyone, because if it was, these doctors who've sworn Hippocratic oaths would not be giving it to anyone. So stop. So just stop with it. And I would love to talk about taking care of our trans elders. I would love to talk about ensuring quality of care and standard of living for trans people. We got to start with like fucking baby steps because people are just so anti anything in the trans community. This concept of transgender ideology and Democrats having to stop talking about motherfuckers. We have not been talking about it. We have been responding to this ongoing assault, this framing of these conversations by the right into our public discourse has been done by the right. It hasn't been done by us. Like, God forbid we defend ourselves. God forbid we actually say, hey, you know what? What you're saying is bullshit. Like, what you're saying isn't true. God forbid actually defend our children from these fucking attacks. And then it's turned around to make it look like we're the ones that are talking about all this. And we have this woke mind. No, motherfuckers. We're just not going to let you fucking shovel shit on us and tell us it's fucking snowing. Fuck that.
Yeah. This is when we have to have that pow, 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 and then all the hundreds got to flash around you. Because you said all of the, so I have a cold. I've been taking cold medicine, and so you're saying all the things my numb mind is like, yeah.
Good. Because you know,
I feel
I'm the Lisette whisperer.
Yeah. No, I mean, that doesn't need a follow-up. It's true. We are in reaction to and in defense of our loved ones. Always.
Yeah. Now it's time for our recurring segment, Allies and Assholes, where we celebrate individuals or groups who are upholding the LGBTQI community on the one hand and call out straight up assholes who are trying to move us all backwards on the other. Lisette, who are we talking about today?
Well, Stephen, our ally of the week is New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. And I just want to say, he made me question my move. Like, I was like, wait, could we see a shift? Might this happen? Made me question myself in the best way. So congratulations, excited. Mamdani made this week's list for naming a trans woman, Abby Stein, to his transition team. Mamdani's campaign centered LGBTQIA rights, and following his win, he pledged to protect trans New Yorkers amid ongoing attacks by the Trump administration. Stein, an ex-Orthodox Jew, is an author, activist, and rabbi at Brooklyn's progressive Kolat Cheyenne Synagogue, who was part of the Jews for Zohran campaign. Mamdani naming her to his transition team confirms his commitment to LGBTQ New Yorkers in general and trans people in particular.
I don't want to fanboy anybody. I really don't. I don't want to be like Trump sitting in the Oval Office smiling like a smitten schoolgirl. But sometimes this dude just be doing stuff that makes you feel like, yo, there is like a group of people in this country that are doing good for doing good's sake. And as much as people may want to get on these progressives about what they're trying to do and their socialism and all this other bullshit, like right is right. Right is right. If you're going to campaign on ensuring that all New Yorkers have a seat at the table, then goddamn it, you better put a member of the LGBTQ nation, a member of the trans community on your transition team. You better make sure that the issues that are germane to that community can be spoken to from a person in that community. And so for me, this dude being on the list again makes sense because he's just doing all the right things. He's just doing all the right things. He's not taking shit from anybody. He's speaking truth to power, and he is living up to the commitments that he made on the campaign trail, which is frankly quite refreshing to see that of any elected official, much less a person who was so maligned during his campaign, and he didn't let none of that shit get to him.
Stephen, so I don't share this often, but my dad is hard of hearing. He has 2 hearing aids. And growing up, my dad, he had to wear hearing aids all the time, and he had to use certain devices like special telephones to be able to hear on the phone. And then he had reparative surgery, and as he's aged, he's lost hearing again. And so language accessibility is really important to me. And so Mamdani made my heart flutter when he did multiple campaign ads in multiple languages. That's somebody who really cares. And I know I went from hearing accessibility to language accessibility, but it's just so important to see someone actually care about connecting with their voters and accessing them in their language. Like, I don't think we've ever seen that before. And so it was really amazing. I've gone on a tangent. And so this is why New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani is our ally of the week.
Congratulations to Mayor-elect Mamdani. Now on to our asshole of the week. Our asshole of the week is Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy. Senate Help Chair Bill Cassidy launched investigations on Tuesday into 18 states and the District of Columbia over their policies allowing transgender students to play on women's sports teams. The Louisiana Republican said that the state's policies that allow transgender students to use women's facilities and compete in women's sports violate Title IX, the federal education law that prohibits sex-based discrimination. Now, we all know that this is just another effort to demonize and terrorize trans people. But once again, this dude has nothing better to do with his time, nothing better to do with the Senate's resources, nothing better to do for his constituents than investigate 18 states for permitting trans people to play on sports teams.
Stephen, we need a t-shirt that says Bill Cassidy is an assity with like a little soccer ball, like in between the ass and the itty, so that people know what we mean. Because I'm really tired of cis straight old ass men having something to say about women's sports and women being able to participate with trans women in sports and to also share public spaces with them. This is ridiculous, and these types of bans hurt all women.
The fact that he is trying to investigate 18 states, and we can be sure these 18 states are blue states, beyond a shadow of a doubt. If you know nothing about what he's doing, you can rest assured that he's investigating 18 Democratic states. But that aside, what is the fucking point?
He doesn't want to do the real work of like figuring out how to support people in his state who will be impacted by climate. It's laziness and hate.
If you look at the states where education is the worst, where they rank the lowest in education, where they rank the highest in poverty, where they rank the highest infant mortality rates, where they rank the highest in crime, where they rank the highest in government subsidies, meaning that they require handouts to keep their shit going. If you look at those states, they're all Republican run states. Mm-hmm. They're all Republican red states where MAGA runs heavy and intelligence runs particularly low. And so who was surprised that Bill Cassidy is our asshole of the week? Not I.
Not I.
Well, that's our show for today, folks. I'd like to thank my co-host Lisette Trujillo for holding me down always and making sure that our listeners know what's up.
Stephen, we couldn't make this podcast as bomb as it is without all of your labor. And we also couldn't do it without all of you, our listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the Parent Advocate Podcast.
And folks, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, Substack, and YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and do everything you've got to do to stay up to date with everything going on here at the Parent Advocate Podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.